close your eyes for a second. Think of the last affirmation you repeated to yourself. Maybe in the mirror, maybe in your car, maybe at 2 a.m. when nothing felt okay. Now ask yourself honestly, did it work? For most of you, the answer is no. And the world will tell you to say it louder, say it faster, say it 100 times a day. But I'm here to tell you something different. The problem was never the words. The problem was the frequency. Because you can have the right message on the wrong station and all you'll ever hear is noise. There is a great illusion that has taken root in the hearts of millions. It is the belief that if you simply speak a thing, if you arrange the right words in the right order and repeat them enough times, the universe will bend itself to your declaration. And so people stand before mirrors in the early morning light, reciting their affirmations like a merchant counting coins, hoping that volume will substitute for value. They say the words, they say them again, and yet nothing moves, nothing shifts. The life they are reaching for remains exactly where it was, just out of grasp, like a horizon that retreats with every step forward. I want you to understand something that most people are never taught. Words by themselves have no power. None. A word is merely a vibration in the air, a sound wave that rises and dissolves in a moment. What gives a word its force, its penetrating, transforming force, is the consciousness behind it, the feeling beneath it, the unshakable inner knowing that accompanies it. Without that, even the most perfectly crafted affirmation is nothing more than a hollow echo bouncing off the walls of an empty room. Think of it this way. Imagine a radio transmitter. It can produce sound. It can generate signal. But if the transmitter is not calibrated, if it is broadcasting on the wrong frequency, no one receives the message. Not a single soul. The signal goes out, yes, but it reaches nothing. It connects with nothing. And this is precisely what happens when a person repeats affirmations while carrying, deep in the chambers of their heart, the quiet but relentless whisper of doubt. The mouth says, I am abundant, but the heart says, I have never been enough. And I tell you, the heart is always the louder broadcast. The mind is not fooled by performance. You may recite 1,000 affirmations with perfect diction, with great enthusiasm, with discipline and consistency. And yet if beneath those words there lives a belief that contradicts them, the deeper mind will always side with what it believes, not with what you say. This is not failure. This is the precision of your own inner intelligence protecting you from what it perceives as falsehood. The subconscious is not your enemy. It is simply loyal, fiercely, stubbornly loyal, to whatever you have taught it is true about you. This is why faith is not decoration. Faith is not a finishing touch you add after the words are in place. Faith is the signal itself. It is the carrier wave upon which every true declaration must travel if it is ever to arrive at its destination. Without faith, without that deep, cellular, bone-level certainty, the words are sent but never delivered. They scatter in the wind like seeds thrown onto stone. So the question you must sit with is not, am I saying the right things? The question is, do I believe what I am saying, not in my mind, but in the marrow of my being? Because the universe does not respond to language. It responds to frequency, and your frequency is not determined by your vocabulary. It is determined by the quality of your inner conviction, by the degree to which your soul has aligned with what your lips are proclaiming. And when that alignment happens, even once, even for a moment, you will feel it, not as excitement, not as hope, as certainty, as stillness, as the quiet thunder of a consciousness that has finally stopped begging and begun knowing. That is the frequency that moves mountains. Now, having understood that words without belief are nothing more than noise, we must go deeper. Because even when a person begins to sense the importance of belief, they make another mistake, perhaps the most common mistake of all. They direct their affirmations at the wrong part of themselves. They speak to the surface. They polish the outside of the vessel, while the inside remains unchanged. And they wonder why, after weeks and months of sincere effort, the transformation they seek has still not arrived. Let me explain what is happening beneath the surface of your awareness. Within you, there are two minds at work. There is the conscious mind, the part of you that thinks, reasons, plans, and chooses. It is the mind that reads books, sets goals, and decides each morning to be better than the day before. This is the mind that hears your affirmation, It registers the words. It may even find them inspiring. But here is what most people do not realize. The conscious mind is not the architect of your life. It is only the planner, the real builder, the one laying every brick of your reality day after day, without rest and without pause, is your subconscious mind. The subconscious does not think. It does not reason or evaluate or debate. It simply executes. It runs the patterns it has been given. Patterns formed not in this morning's affirmation session, but over years and decades of repeated experience, inherited belief, emotional conditioning, and the quiet conclusions you drew about yourself long before you ever knew you were drawing them. It is vast. It is ancient within you, and it is extraordinarily powerful. Scientists who have studied the mind tell us that the subconscious processes millions of signals every single second, while your conscious mind can hold only a handful of thoughts at once. To speak only to the conscious mind with your affirmations is like whispering instructions to a secretary while the chief executive, who runs the entire organization, sits 2 floors above, completely unaware that a meeting even took place. So how do you reach the subconscious? How do you send your message all the way down, past the noise of the surface mind, into the deep interior where real change is authored? The answer is not repetition alone. Repetition without emotion is like knocking on a door no one is home to answer. What opens the door to the subconscious? What causes it to receive a new instruction and begin rebuilding your inner architecture around it is feeling. Emotion, the lived embodied sense of the thing you are declaring as though it is already so. When you speak your affirmation and simultaneously feel, in your chest, in your breath, in the very rhythm of your body, what it would feel like to already be that person, something extraordinary begins to happen. The subconscious cannot distinguish between a vividly felt inner experience and an outer reality. This is not metaphor. This is how the instrument of your mind actually functions. Feed it a feeling often enough, with enough sincerity and depth, and it will begin to reorganize your perceptions, your instincts, your habits, and your choices to match that feeling. Because to the subconscious, that feeling is already the truth of who you are. This is why great mystics throughout the ages have spoken not of thinking your way to transformation, but of feeling your way there. Of praying not as a petition, but as a celebration of what is already given. Of affirming not from a place of longing, but from a place of arrival. Your subconscious is not waiting for your words. It is waiting for your conviction to become experience. Speak from that place, and it will have no choice but to believe you. So, we have traveled together through 2 profound realizations. We have seen that words without belief are hollow, and that the subconscious mind, not the conscious, is the true seat of transformation. But now we arrive at perhaps the most painful truth of all, because there are people who have genuinely tried to believe, people who have sat in stillness, who have felt the emotion, who have done everything they were told to do, and still, something inside them resists. Still, the affirmation does not take root. Still, the soil of their inner life refuses to receive the seed. And the reason, when we look closely and honestly, is almost always the same. There is a war happening inside them, a war between what they are declaring and what they secretly believe they are. This is the wound of identity mismatch, and it is far more widespread than most teachers are willing to admit. You see, every human being carries within them a self-concept, a deeply held, largely unconscious portrait of who they are. It was painted long before you had the wisdom to choose your own colors. It was shaped by the voices of parents, by the judgments of teachers, by the sting of early failures, and the slow accumulation of moments where life seemed to confirm your smallness rather than your greatness. And over time, that portrait hardens. It becomes, in the mind's economy, the standard of truth, the reference point against which every new idea about yourself is measured. And so when you stand before the mirror and declare, "I am wealthy," the subconscious does not simply receive that statement. It runs it against the portrait. It checks the declaration against the deep file of everything it believes you to be. And if the declaration does not match the portrait, if it contradicts the stored identity too sharply, too suddenly, the mind does not update the portrait. It rejects the declaration. It labels it false, not because you are broken, not because affirmations do not work, but because you have asked the mind to make a leap across a chasm too wide to cross in a single bound. This is where so many sincere people fall. They are not lacking discipline. They are not lacking desire. They are lacking a bridge. And a bridge, by its very nature, must begin where you actually are, not where you wish you were. The bridge is built not through denial of your present reality, but through honest, forward-leaning language that honors where you stand while pointing powerfully toward where you are going. There is an enormous difference between saying, "I am wealthy," when every cell in your body knows you are struggling, and saying, "I am becoming someone who understands money deeply and creates abundance with wisdom." The second statement does not lie to your subconscious. It does not ask it to pretend. It invites it to move, gradually, genuinely, in a direction it can actually believe in. And a subconscious mind that believes the direction, even before it believes the destination, will begin moving you there with every decision, every instinct, every quiet pull of your attention throughout the day. This is not settling. This is strategy. This is the intelligence of a farmer who does not demand the harvest on the day of planting, but who trusts the process deeply enough to prepare the soil, plant with intention, and return each morning to tend what is growing beneath the surface, even before a single shoot has broken through the ground. Change your portrait gradually, consistently, and with great tenderness toward the self that was painted by circumstances not of your choosing. Do not war against your own identity. Befriend it, then gently, firmly, lovingly, begin to redraw it. Because the person you are becoming is already waiting for the person you are to stop arguing with them. And so we arrive at something that the modern world, in its great rush toward productivity and output, has almost entirely forgotten. We have spoken of belief. We have spoken of the subconscious. We have spoken of identity and the bridge that must be built between who you are and who you are becoming. But now I want to speak to you about something more subtle, and in many ways more decisive than all of these. Because you can have the right words, you can have genuine feeling behind them, you can even be moving slowly and honestly toward a new self-portrait. And still, if you are broadcasting from the wrong inner state, none of it will land where it needs to land. Think again of that radio transmitter. The message matters, the signal matters, but before any of that, the transmitter itself must be tuned. It must be operating at the correct frequency. And your inner state, the emotional and energetic atmosphere you carry within you at the moment you speak your affirmation, is the transmitter. It is the instrument through which everything else must pass. Speak your affirmation in fear, and fear is what you are broadcasting, regardless of the words. Speak it in shame, in desperation, in the tight, contracted energy of someone who is grasping rather than receiving. And the universe hears not your declaration, but your desperation. Not your faith, but your doubt dressed in the clothing of hope. This is why the great contemplatives of every tradition did not begin their prayers with words. They began with preparation, with stillness, with breath, with the deliberate, intentional act of shifting their inner atmosphere before a single declaration was made. They understood that the state from which you speak determines the frequency at which your message travels, and therefore whether it arrives at all. And so the practice is this: before you affirm, arrive. Before you declare, descend. Into the quiet beneath the noise of the day, beneath the anxiety of your circumstances, beneath the chatter of a mind that is always cataloging what is wrong and what is missing. Find, even for 2 minutes, even for 60 seconds of genuine stillness, the place inside you that is already calm, already whole, already, in its deepest nature, unafraid. It is there. It is always there. It does not disappear when life becomes difficult. It simply becomes harder to hear. Breathe into that place. Let the body soften. Let the mind stop its negotiations with reality for just one moment. And from that stillness, from that open, receptive, genuinely peaceful inner ground, speak your affirmation. You will immediately feel the difference. The words will carry weight they never carried before. They will feel less like a request and more like a remembrance. Less like a wish and more like a recognition of something that was always true. Your state is not a minor detail in this practice. It is the whole instrument. Tune yourself first and then speak. Because a tuned instrument does not just make sound, it makes music. We have come a long way together on this journey. We have dismantled the illusion that words alone carry power. We have descended into the subconscious and understood what it truly takes to reach it. We have faced the quiet war of identity mismatch and learned to build bridges rather than demand leaps. We have discovered that the state from which we speak is the instrument upon which everything else depends. And now we arrive at a truth so simple, so plainly visible, that it is almost embarrassing how often it is overlooked. Because everything we have discussed, every insight, every refinement, every calibration of belief and emotion and inner state, means absolutely nothing if you do not move. Faith, true faith, is never still. It is the most active force in the universe. And the great tragedy of the affirmation culture that has swept through the modern world is that it has, in many hearts, quietly replaced action with declaration. People affirm their courage, but avoid the conversation that requires it. They affirm their abundance, but make no change in how they spend, how they invest, how they value their own time and offerings. They affirm their health while dishonoring the body day after day with choices that contradict every word they have spoken. And then they wonder, with genuine bewilderment, why nothing is changing. I want you to understand something deeply. Your subconscious mind is not listening only during your affirmation practice. It is listening always. It is watching everything. Every choice you make from the moment you wake until the moment you sleep is a message sent directly to your deeper mind about what you truly believe. And when your behavior consistently contradicts your declarations, the subconscious does not side with your words. It sides with your actions. Every single time. Because actions, to the subconscious, are the truest and most undeniable form of belief. They are faith made visible. They are the evidence your inner mind uses to determine what is real. This means that every small act of alignment, every moment where you choose the action that the person you are becoming would choose, is not just a practical step forward. It is a vote. A declaration cast not in words, but in reality. It tells your subconscious, with an authority that no affirmation alone can match, that you are serious, that this is not performance, that the transformation you are speaking about is one you are willing to pay for with your actual life, with your time, your comfort, your willingness to move before you feel completely ready. And here is the beautiful, liberating truth that lives inside this understanding. You do not need to take enormous action. You do not need to transform everything overnight. You only need to take the next honest step, the one small, courageous, aligned action that the person you are becoming would not hesitate to take. One step, then another, then another. And with each step, the subconscious updates its portrait. With each step, the gap between who you are and who you are declaring yourself to be grows smaller until one day, not with fanfare, not with dramatic announcement, you simply look up and realize you have arrived. Because faith without action is a letter written but never sent. Move, and the universe will finally have an address to deliver your answered prayers to. And so we arrive together at the place where everything converges. We have walked through 5 profound truths, each one a layer removed, each one bringing us closer to the beating heart of why most affirmations fail and what it truly takes to make them work. And now, standing here at the summit of this understanding, I want to speak to you not about technique, not about method, not about another refinement to add to your practice. I want to speak to you about something far more fundamental. I want to speak to you about the difference between the 99 and the 1, because there is always a 1%. In every era, in every culture, in every generation of human seeking, there have been those rare individuals who cracked the code, who discovered through grace or through great suffering or through the sheer refusal to stop searching what the majority never finds. And when you study these people closely, when you strip away the mythology and the legend and look at the actual substance of how they lived and how they thought and how they moved through the world, you find not one secret. You find a system, an integrated, unified, living system in which every element we have discussed does not operate in isolation, but works in concert, like instruments in an orchestra that individually make sound, but together create something that can move a human soul to tears. They had belief. Not the fragile, hoping kind, but the deep bedrock certainty of a consciousness that has sat long enough in silence to touch something real within itself. They had emotional resonance. They did not merely think their affirmations, they inhabited them. They wore them like a second skin until the subconscious could no longer distinguish between the declaration and the identity. They had patience with the bridge. They did not demand the harvest before the season, but trusted the growth happening beneath the surface in the dark and quiet of their consistent inner work. They were ferocious about their inner state. They treated their mental and emotional atmosphere as sacred ground, understanding that a contaminated transmitter produces a contaminated signal regardless of the beauty of the message. And they acted relentlessly, humbly, consistently, closing the gap between their vision and their reality with every decision, every day, without waiting for perfect conditions that would never come. But there is one more thing, one element that binds all the others together, and without which even the most disciplined practice will eventually collapse under the weight of its own effort. And that element is environment. The 1% understood that you cannot sustain a high frequency in a low frequency world without being intentional, fiercely, deliberately intentional, about what you allow into your consciousness, the voices you listen to, the spaces you inhabit, the relationships you invest in, the content you feed your mind in its most impressionable moments, the first light of morning, the last quiet of night. Environment is not background. Environment is programming, and the 1% treated it as such. This is not a complicated formula. It is not reserved for the spiritually gifted or the intellectually exceptional. It is available to every human soul willing to stop performing faith and begin living it. From the inside out, from the subconscious up, from the stillness forward, from this moment on. The frequency of faith is not something you find outside yourself. It is something you remember, and once remembered, nothing in this universe can silence it again.